One of the first lawmakers to call for the memo's public release, Republican Ron DeSantis of Florida, sits on the House Foreign Affairs and Judiciary Committees. The congressman also a candidate for Florida governor right now. Great to see you today. You heard me going back pretty tough. I have a lot of questions. My first is, what is the takeaway that you want the American people to have first? Because you wanted this to be out there.
Well, I think that it answered a lot of important questions, but it also raises others. I mean, it answers the question about, did the FBI use this Democrat Party-funded dossier to obtain surveillance? And the answer to that question is yes. How important was the dossier? Well, the memo points out that Andrew McCabe in his testimony said that there would not have been an application for surveillance but for the dossier. So whatever percentage the dossier was, based on his testimony, there would not have been surveillance issued if you didn't have the dossier. Then you look at somebody like Bruce Orr, who is one of the top-ranking officials in the Obama Justice Department. His wife is working for Fusion GPS, which, of course, is being funded by the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton. And she's feeding Orr all this negative research on Trump, unverified research, as even James Comey has admitted. And then Orr is taking that and feeding it back into the Obama administration at Justice and at FBI. So it's a confluence of the Democratic Party, the Obama administration, Fusion GPS, the media. Shockingly, they used that Yahoo News article from September of 2016 as corroboration for the Steele dossier, but that article was based off Christopher Steele leaking to the reporter. So it's a circular logic that they're using there. So I think that there's a lot of concerns about this, and I think it's going to raise questions about, okay, why was the surveillance re-upped going forward? That stretched all the way into Trump's administration with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. I also look at that Papadopoulos nugget that had been reported. It seemed odd to me, but the fact that that is verified. You have this anti-Trump FBI agent, Peter Strzok, who wanted an insurance policy, didn't want him to be president, and he opens up a massive federal investigation based off Papadopoulos drinking at a bar and saying that the Russians have dirt on Hillary Clinton. That is a very thin reason to start a major investigation, and it's totally conflicting with how a lack of zealousness he displayed heading the Hillary Clinton email investigation.
Well, you just laid it out for us, and I want to now kind of go back in there and pick this apart. Very disturbing to know that a Yahoo News article that circled back to basically the same source that was the first on the list, which is this Christopher Steele. You know, when it comes to this president and what he has said widely about the media, how does this fit in your view when you hear, and we haven't talked with Yahoo News, so I don't know that they knew that this was part of the investigation, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this memo is a lot of the journalists in Washington, they were basically against releasing this. I mean, they were saying this is nothing, this is not right, all this. They have no compunction about printing classified information. They have no compunction usually about using anonymous sources. In fact, this whole Russia narrative was based off anonymous sources, months and months of leaks from the bureaucrats to the media. And now all of a sudden they don't want this information to come out, which is being done pursuant to a lawful process contained in the rules of the House of Representatives. I think what this shows is this whole Russia stuff was, I think, much more wishful thinking on the part of FBI agents like Peter Strzok, who didn't like Trump, the anti-Trump media, who obviously didn't like him, and of course the Democrats who were running a campaign against him. And it just seems to me that they always thought the worst about any piece of information they would get, and they took aggressive investigative steps, the likes of which they certainly did not take when they were investigating Hillary Clinton. So I think the reason why a lot of the press has been opposed to releasing this memo, because I think they're so invested in this collusion narrative, and it just bears repeating, Harris. I mean, here we are, we're in 2018 now, and we still don't have evidence of any Trump-Russia campaign collusion.
Well, you know, we'll look closely at this memo, but if, you know, there's got to be documentation, I would imagine, transcripts from what people said and that sort of thing. This is just 3 1/4 pages, so there's definitely more to it that maybe we can and cannot see. But if these are the high or the lowlights, if we want to put it, there's a lot that's troubling in here. My question for you is, based on the fact that this FISA warrant was obtained and then even extended under Rosenstein, the current deputy AG, Are you concerned that there are other situations inside the FBI where maybe the things were not followed the way that they should have been? Are we taking a look at the FISA court? Where are your concerns now?
Well, it may be, but I would say I think that the actions of somebody like Peter Strzok were so atypical of what a traditional FBI agent would be doing. I mean, what he was doing, the things he was saying about Donald Trump with Lisa Page, the fact that he's engaged in this affair with Lisa Page when he's a top counterintelligence official was reckless. So I think we may need to look at that. But I think a lot of the questions and a lot of the troubling things we've seen really can be traced back to the biases that people like Peter Strzok displayed. And that's been the whole troubling thing about this whole thing. You start with the Hillary case, you go up to the president. Any questionable actions almost always dovetailed with the biases that have been evinced by people like Strzok. Remember, he texted Lisa Page back and forth, and they were saying, oh, you don't want to go in and interrogate Hillary with guns blazing. She could be the next president. And he's like, oh, yeah, I agree. We don't want to do that. That is not how they handled this surveillance with the Trump campaign. They used thin gruel to get it. It very well may have been very improper, but at a minimum, it was very, very weak.
All right, so the public has seen it now. What's the end game, real quickly? What would you like to see happen here? Are there going to be people who lose their jobs?
I think there probably will be. I think Rosenstein's going to have to come to the Congress and explain his role in extending it. I mean, did he go back and review it and he was satisfied, or did he just extend it? And is he going to be able to justify this as a proper use of FISA? It's a very important question that needs answering.
Congressman DeSantis, from the beginning, we've been talking with you about this, and now the memo is out for people to see. Thank you very much for your time.